I never heard it talk before. Okay. All right, I'm just gonna share my screen. It's being silly. Sorry, I don't mean to hold you up. I just want to get that one screen up.
No problem.
I thought I had it ready. Here we go. It's like I haven't done this before. Like I do this all the time. Okay. All righty. Okay. Thank you everyone for coming. Sorry for that little hiccup in the beginning. My name is Carrie Wallace. I'm the circulation supervisor here at the Ridgewood Public Library. I'm also on the Village of Ridgewood Stigma Free Committee. On behalf of the Ridgewood Public Library, the Friends of the Ridgewood Public Library, and the Village of Ridgewood Stigma Free Committee, thank you for joining our virtual author event with Lucas Wolfe, author of My Perfect Life. I'm so grateful for having Lucas share his inspirational story for Mental Health Awareness Month with us tonight. In addition to writing My Perfect Life, Lucas is a mental health advocate, speaker for Minding Your Mind, and has written articles for The Mighty, an online support community where people seek support and solidarity for the mental health issues they face. I would like to thank Lucas and the Bergen County Department of Health Services, who donated a copy of Lucas's book to every library in Bergen County Cooperative Library System. You can request a copy of Lucas's book by visiting www.bccls.org. You can also purchase My Perfect Life by visiting smile.amazon.com and support your favorite organization. We will also be raffling copies of My Perfect Life tonight. So we'll have some lucky winners. Please send me an email at kwallace@ridgewoodlibrary.org for a chance to win. And without further ado, here's Lucas. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. We're really excited to have you tonight.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. So I'll jump right into this presentation that I have. So thank you everyone for being here tonight. My name is Lucas Wolfe. I'm the author of My Perfect Life, and I am a speaker with an organization called Mind Your Mind. And what we do for this organization is we often go to high schools or middle schools, sometimes even elementary schools, community groups like this, and we'll have people like myself give a presentation about our experience with mental health and how we dealt with it and how we got to the other side. And the idea is to provide a story that people can relate to and learn from so that they don't reach the crisis point, so that they can get help before that. So what I'm going to do tonight is tell you a little bit about how I was the last person that anybody expected would deal with depression. But here I am telling you about my experience with it. Right now, before this happened to me, I thought that depression only occurred after a tragic event. Right? I thought that people only got depressed after something like the unexpected death of a loved one, or extreme bullying, or child abuse, or something of that nature, something that we would consider a good reason to be depressed. I had no idea that depression was an illness, and I had no idea it was an illness that could affect someone like me. And what do I mean by that? Who was I before all this? I was just a regular happy guy with a pretty much perfect life. I had a good home, I had a good family, I got good grades in school, I played a lot of sports, soccer, basketball, baseball, and Later on, I did track and cross country, and I was decently good at all of them. And I was always talking to people. I loved talking. I always wanted to be the center of attention, and I never met a spotlight that I didn't want to be in. Right? And to be perfectly honest with all of you, I was a little bit cocky back then. I had a little bit of an ego. And sometimes that rubbed people the wrong way, but that's okay. That's the way that we can be when we're teenagers. But given that, I'm sure you can imagine my surprise and confusion when in my junior year of high school, I began to have these feelings of emptiness and worthlessness and this crushing sadness that didn't match the quality of my life. And I didn't understand where these feelings came from because I didn't know that depression was an illness. And it began to feel like there was this war within me, like there were these two halves of me, right? Like there was a depressed half and a real half. And my depressed half would tell me that I was no good and that my life didn't matter and that I was a burden to all those around me. And my real half would fight back against that. And it was a lot like in the cartoons when you have the angel and the demon on the shoulder and they're battling it out. You know, it was a lot like this guy, Kronk from the Emperor's New Groove. And if you haven't seen it, I totally recommend it. It's a hilarious movie. It's on Disney Plus. But anyway, I looked just as surprised as this guy because I really didn't get it. I really didn't know just what was going on with me. And I did what anyone at that age would do. And I tried to figure it out myself. I tried to rationalize it. And I said that these feelings got to be a phase. You know, I'm a teenager. Everyone says teenagers go through phases. And no, nobody ever told me about this crushing sadness phase. But yeah, I guess that's just the one that I'm going through right now. And it was easy for me to convince myself of that because I noticed that these feelings only ever really happened when I turned off. And by that, I just mean when my mind wasn't going at 1,000 miles an hour, which in high school, pretty easy to keep our minds active like that, you know, between homework and schoolwork and sports and all the things we got going on, you know, just always busy, always keeping our minds active. And so I told myself, it's not going to be a big deal. You know, it's just a phase and it'll pass. And in the meantime, I just got to do the best that I can to not turn off. And so I want to tell you about a time that I first realized that maybe this is more than a phase. Maybe there's something else going on here. I got no idea what it is. And again, it was early in my junior year of high school, and my dad, my twin brother Joe, and I, we went up to Penn State to see a football game. And I was real pumped about that because I grew up in a Penn State family. My dad went to Penn State. My mom went, or not my pop-up went to Penn State. My mom loves Penn State. And I was just excited to get to see this place that I'd grown up my whole life hearing about. And as someone that loved being around people, Penn State was like my paradise because there were more people there than I've ever seen in my life on game day. I mean, that whole place was just a sea of navy blue and white, and everyone was in a good mood. Everyone was having a great time, you know. People were tailgating and cooking and playing games, and little kids running around with their parents, you know, throwing a football, whole little Penn State family in the making. And it was cool. It was cool to get to see that, to get to be a part of it. And then we got into the stadium and, you know, everyone's cheering and the team comes running out of the tunnel and the marching band, they're out on the field. And the guy with the tall hat, the drum major, he comes running down the middle of the field and he does a front flip and lands in a split, which was crazy. I mean, it's just crazy to me. I don't understand how people are ever able to do that. You know, I'm about as flexible as a 2x4, so I was impressed. I could see why people love college game day so much. And then the game started and Penn State was winning. We're scoring touchdowns and everyone's high-fiving and cheering and the stadium breaks out in the wave and it was just awesome. It was awesome. It was a perfect day and it was one of the best days of my life up until that point. And then the third quarter rolled around and Joe, my dad, and I, we went to go get some food because the lines died down after halftime. And my dad and Joe, they got in line, but I went to the edge of the stadium to see if I could find my dad's dorm from his time at Penn State because there's a bunch of dorms right there by the stadium. And while I was up there, I was thinking about how maybe this could be my life. Maybe I could get into this school and follow my family's footsteps and make them proud. And I wanted to do that because even though I got good grades and stuff in high school, it was a little bit of a screw up. I didn't appreciate anything that I had. I didn't try hard at anything that I did. And I began to realize how wrong that was. And I wanted to make up for it. And I thought that maybe I could do that if I got into Penn State. And I was having such a good time thinking about that, imagining what that life could look like. I forgot to keep my mind going at that 1,000-mile-an-hour pace. And I turned off at the top of a stadium at the edge, looking down. And I've never wanted to jump so badly in my entire life. This guy was back. And I remember very distinctly my depressed half saying to me, 2 seconds. 2 seconds, and it'll all just be over. And then the other half of me was like, 2 seconds and what's going to be over? Your life, your great life, your happy life? Why? Why would you want that? And how do you tell somebody about that? How do you tell somebody that you recognize that you have a great life, a happy life, but there's some part of you that doesn't want to live, and you don't even know why? And so again, I tried to explain it myself, because I was embarrassed. I was ashamed. I didn't understand what was going on. I didn't know it was depression. And so I said, well, I'm a pretty confident guy. I don't really ever get stressed out. Maybe that's what this is. Maybe because I'm at this school, I'm at this college, I'm thinking about my future. I don't know if I'm going to get in. I don't know what I'm going to study. I don't know what anything looks like. Maybe I'm stressed out. And, I think that's kind of normal for that age. Sometimes you don't know, but it sort of seemed like everybody around me knew, and kind of like they had always known, right? I knew a guy always wanted to go to the University of Pittsburgh, study biochemistry, go to med school, do the whole doctor thing. Another friend of mine always wanted to go to a large state school like Penn State, study public relations, and move to New York City one day. And another friend of mine, whole time I knew her, this girl always told me that one day she was going to move to Hawaii and swim with the dolphins. And that was going to be her job. And of course, I was like, good luck with that. It's not a real job. That's what people do on vacation. Except that's what she's doing. She got a degree in marine biology. She moved to Hawaii. She became a dolphin trainer. And I like to tell this story because I like to tell people that you really can do whatever you want to do with your life if we put our minds to it and we work towards it. And it really did feel like everybody else had it figured out except me. So it made sense to me to say, that's why I feel this way. That's why I have this sadness, this emptiness, this war within myself that no one else has, because I'm lost and they're not. And once I figure this out, I'm not going to feel this way anymore. And so with that in mind, my senior year of high school rolled around and I applied to Penn State and I got in. And I was real happy about that. But these feelings were still there. And then I got into my freshman year of college and I loved it. I had a great time. I absolutely loved being in college, made a bunch of new friends, got good grades, went to football games. And at the end of the year, I decided that I was going to go into chemical engineering. But these feelings were still there. And then I got into my sophomore year and I needed to blame them on something because I had figured out where I was going to college and I figured out what I was studying. And in my sophomore year, I started failing my classes because I got into my kind of hard engineering classes. And that was the first time that had ever happened to me. And so I blamed those feelings, that sadness and that emptiness and that war within myself on those bad grades. And I said, that's why I still feel this way. Except that's a really lame reason for a part of me to not want to live, a couple bad grades. And I knew that. And I knew that didn't even make sense. because I had felt this way long before my bad grades, but I just didn't know what else to blame it on. And the only relief that I got from that is I was always able to blame something outside of myself for why I felt the way I did. You know, it was always stress from something external. You know, it wasn't me. I wasn't the problem. But the issue with that is I really beat myself up on it because it just didn't seem real to me. You know, my life was too good for the way that I felt and over a couple bad grades. And so I called myself all kinds of names. You know, I told myself that I was weak and pathetic and a coward and on and on and on. But at least I was able to blame something outside of myself until the end of my sophomore year when I played a totally meaningless pickup basketball game with a bunch of my friends. Like I said earlier, I never met a spotlight that I didn't want to be in. Right? I'm the type of guy that likes to take the game-winning shot. I like doing it. And I don't always make it, but I'm not afraid to just put myself out there like that. Except in this game that didn't matter, didn't mean anything. It was just for fun. I was afraid. I was terrified. And not just of taking the game-winning shot, but of doing anything, anything at all. So I hid from the ball and I stayed away from it. If people passed it to me, I'd pass it right back. I didn't take a shot the whole game, and then we lost. And it was so dumb because it didn't matter. It was just supposed to be fun with my friends. But it was the first time that I connected those feelings, that sadness, that emptiness, that war within myself. It was the first time that I connected that to my behavior. And I realized that whatever this thing is that's going on with me, it's not outside of me. It's me. There's something wrong with me. And I began to wonder, am I a broken person? Because that's what it felt like. You know, we all change as we grow up. We all become a bit different. And it just felt like I was changing and growing into this broken person. And like I couldn't do anything about that. And it scared the hell out of me. But I wasn't ready to accept it yet. And so one more time, I tried to figure it out on my own. And I came up with a plan to cure myself. And the plan was to get an internship and to graduate. Because if I could do those two things, then I'd be successful. And success is valuable. So I'd be valuable. And I really like to call attention to that point because it was a big driver of my depression. It is for a lot of people, is I thought that I had to do these things to have value. And I only thought that way because I really did believe that I was worthless. And I tried to cover that up with achievement in the same way that lots of people try to cover it up with drugs and alcohol. And just like drugs and alcohol, it didn't work. The only thing that was good about having this plan was it gave me a goal. And that goal gave me hope because I really truly believed that if I just did these things, my life would go back to the way it was supposed to be. And so having that little bit of hope, even though it was misplaced, that helped me to keep going. And I needed that because in my junior year, my grades got better, but the feelings got worse. And they were so bad by my senior year that I was fully suicidal. And every day I was having this battle between my two halves, about whether or not I should check out early. And that was hard. That was a hard thing to deal with on my own, to deal with alone. But I didn't know how to talk to anyone about it, and I didn't know what to say. And what really got me through my senior year, though, was that earlier in the year, I was offered an internship. Like I said, I didn't do so great my sophomore year, so I failed a couple classes, so I had to go an extra semester to graduate. So this internship was for the summer after my senior year and before that extra semester. And I was pumped about this thing. I mean, I was over the moon about it because this was one of my two goals, right? This was one of the two things that was going to put me back together. And so I didn't even care that this was all the way out in New Mexico because I could get my life back, right? And in my mind, graduation, that was like a foregone conclusion because I really passed all the hard classes. I just had a couple of loose ends that I had to tie up. And so that was a done deal. So this internship, this was the last thing that I needed to fix myself, to get my life back, to leave behind all those thoughts of suicide and emptiness and the war within myself and all that other crap I didn't understand. But unfortunately, that's not how depression works. And it didn't take me very long to figure that out. It only took me a couple weeks on the job in New Mexico. And what I realized was this job is not going to fix me. There's no job that's going to fix me. And graduation isn't going to fix me, and there's nothing. It's nothing that's going to fix me because I'm unfixable. And that realization, along with the crushing isolation of being 2,000 miles away from everyone I knew, that's what finally broke me. And I lost hope. And after that, things started to get pretty bad. I had a really hard time eating, so much so that for the remaining 2 to 3 months that I was in New Mexico, I lost close to 30 pounds. I didn't have that kind of weight to lose. And I couldn't sleep much. I'd wake up 4, 5, 6 times a night. And when I did sleep, I had awful, awful nightmares. And I know that sounds a little bit cliche, but I didn't even recognize myself half the time. I didn't look like me. I was taut and haggard, and my eyes were lifeless and dead. And I know that because even 2,000 miles away, my family started to notice that something was wrong. And when I came home from New Mexico, they kept asking me, are you okay? Are you all right? Is something going on? I just blew them off, I'm fine. I'm fine. You're seeing something that's not there. There's nothing to worry about. I'm fine. And even though they knew something wasn't right, there was no way for them to know how bad it was because I wasn't honest. And to them, to myself, even to everyone, I was happy all those years. And I went down to New Mexico happier than ever because I thought that was going to fix me. And I came home and I just looked a little more tired and, maybe a little sad. And if you want to know what a suicidal depression can look like in a person, it's this. And this was a picture taken of me when I got back from New Mexico. It was my younger brother Gabriel's 21st birthday. He's the one in the middle in the orange shirt there with the big cheese smile. And the whole family was together. And we were happy. We were celebrating. Right? And I look good in that picture. I look happy. You would never know from looking at that how much pain I was in. You would never know from looking at that photo that I was very seriously thinking of taking my life at the time. And so, sometimes we can look so happy and so put together, and inside we're broken. And we might not know why, because I didn't. I still didn't get it. And I wasn't able to even admit that it was real, what I was going through, until I went back to Penn State for my final semester and I made my last stand. And I only made it a couple days in that semester, and that was because of all the drinking that I did. And that loosened things up a little bit, and that let me eat, and it let me sleep. But after a couple days of that, I was so sick from the drinking, I couldn't do it anymore. And on the day that I didn't drink, I didn't eat. I didn't have anything all day, not even a cracker. And then I didn't sleep all night. I just lay awake in bed having these panic attacks. Just wave after wave of panic attack. And at the time, I didn't even know what they were. It just kind of felt like my heart was going to explode and like I was going insane. And I should have reached out for help, but I was afraid. I didn't know what was wrong. I didn't understand how to explain it to anyone. I just wanted it to go away on its own. And then for whatever reason in the morning when the sun came up, that did happen. The panic attacks, they subsided, they went away, and I sat up in bed and I said to myself, this sucks. This sucks. And I am sick and tired of feeling like this. And you know what? It's my fault that I feel this way. It's my fault because I've been a coward and I've been a baby. I'm just sitting around feeling sorry for myself. And I don't know what the hell my problem is, but I'm done feeling this way. I'm done feeling this way today. And I really did believe that. I really did believe that it was my fault that I felt like that, and that I just hadn't thrown my whole self at this thing. And that if I would have done that, I would have beat it by now. But on that day, that's what I resolved to do. I just said, I'm going to beat this thing. Whatever it is, I'm going to beat it. I'm going to win. And that's it. And the first thing that I got to do to win is I got to eat. Because if I don't eat, I'm not making it through the day. And so I got up and I went to the kitchen. I got myself my favorite bagel, Wegmans Everything Bagel. I totally recommend those. They're awesome. I threw it in the toaster, buttered it up, gave myself another quick little pep talk, took a bite, and I threw up. Or at least my body tried pretty hard to throw up, but there wasn't any food in my stomach. And so I thought to myself, well, that was kind of weird. Let me try again. Maybe I'll have better luck a second time. And so a second time I tried to take a bite of this bagel. This time all I did was look at it. I just looked at it and I started gagging, and that was it. That was all that I had left in me. That was my last stand, and I lost. But the weird thing about that moment was when my body shut down so completely that I couldn't even look at food. That's when I finally was able to say to myself that it's real. That it's real. Whatever this is that's been going on with me all these years, it's real. I'm not making it up. I'm not feeling sorry for myself. I'm not looking for attention. It's real, and I can do something about it. I don't have to die. I can reach out for help. And it didn't matter that I didn't know what that help looked like. It didn't matter that I didn't even believe there was help for me, because I didn't. I could still choose to try. I could still choose life. And so that's what I did. I got up out of my apartment. I called my dad. And I told him pretty much everything. And it was really great for me to be able to do that, to be able to hand the baton off to my family like that, because I needed someone. I couldn't do it on my own. I tried for a lot of years, and it didn't work. And we all need that sometimes, someone we can go to if things aren't going quite right. And if we don't want to go to people that we know, that's fine. There's a lot of anonymous resources out there. There's the suicide hotline, there's the crisis text line, and there's someone on the other end of that line that gets it, that knows how to help, that wants to help, and that can. Because we all need that. And I know that I did, because I didn't want to go to therapy. I did not want to do it. I thought it was stupid. I didn't see how talking to some stiff who asked me a bunch of questions off a clipboard was going to do diddly squat. Right? I obviously had a very stereotypical view of what therapy was going to be. You know, to my surprise, it wasn't anything like that. My doctor, John, he was a great guy. He was funny. He was friendly. He was warm. And, he didn't talk like a doctor. Every third word out of his mouth was the F-bomb. But I liked that about him, because it made me feel like I was talking to a friend. And what John did for me was he helped me to understand the science of depression and anxiety, how the chemistry works in our brains, and behaviors that I was doing that were making it worse, and things that I could do to make it better. And that brought me so much relief, because John showed me that this nameless, faceless thing that haunted me for years, it was real. He made it concrete. He gave it a name: depression, anxiety. And he showed me that we could treat it. And the way that we were going to do that was with talk therapy and medicine. And Johnny put me on 2 types of medicine. He put me on an anti-anxiety and an antidepressant. And I was afraid to take these medicines. I really was, because the way that they're portrayed in the media, movies, TV shows, whatever, you take this stuff and you go crazy. And if you don't go crazy, you turn into a zombie from The Walking Dead, right? And that sucks. It's a crappy trade-off. Nobody wants that. But John was adamant that I had to try that anti-anxiety medicine right away, because it's a fast-acting medicine, kind of like an Advil. You take it, and 20 minutes later, you feel its effects. And so I did. I tried it, and I'm glad that I did, because when I took that anti-anxiety medicine, all the pain that I was in, all that darkness, all those thoughts of suicide, all that was just gone. And I felt normal. I wasn't high, I wasn't loopy, I wasn't out of my mind, I wasn't crazy, I wasn't a zombie. I just felt normal. And it had been so long since I felt that way, I forgot how amazing it is to just feel normal. And as the medicine wore off and the pain and despair, depression came back, I realized that John was right about why I had to take it. Because I believed again that I could get better. Because I felt it, even if it was only for a little bit. And having that hope, that helped me to hold on. And I needed that because the antidepressant was what I really needed to kick in to get better. But that takes like 8 to 10 weeks. It's a little bit more like taking a vitamin. And I don't take vitamins, but we know how they work. You take them every day. At first, you don't feel anything, but the nutrients build up in your system, and over time, we start to feel their effects. And as the weeks went by, I noticed that my bad days weren't so bad, and then my good days were getting better. But what really helped me the most, and it's a big part of why I do this with Mind in Your Mind, because the medicine it's a crutch to get us through the worst of times, and then it's something that helps keep us even after that. What really helped me the most was talking to other people in my life who struggled with depression, who I never would have thought struggled with it, because they were happy and they loved life, and I could see that in them. I could see that they were happy and that they loved life. And when I spoke with them and I heard the pain and the compassion in their voice as they learned what I was going through, there was no doubt in my mind that they knew. They knew exactly what it was that I was experiencing because they had gone through it themselves. And so when they told me, when they pleaded with me to just hold on, because they knew how hard it was, but also that it got better, I believed them. I believed them when they told me that there was another side to depression. And having that hope and that faith in life after that kind of pain, that's what really made the difference for me. And that's when I turned the corner. And week by week, month by month, I felt more and more and more like myself. Until one day I noticed that this guy was gone. I didn't have that sadness in me anymore. I didn't have that war between my two halves. I didn't have those thoughts of suicide, emptiness, none of that, none of that. And I knew that I was on the other side, right? And this is what it looks like. I'm happier than I've ever been in my life. I'm healthier than I've ever been. And I wake up happy every day, right? And it's not fake, it's not forced. I don't wake up singing Disney songs with the woodland creatures. That doesn't happen. It's just this greater appreciation for life. I really feel like I got a second chance. I get to do all these wonderful things with that. I was the best man at my twins' wedding, and I got married myself a couple months ago, and I wrote this book, and I give these presentations, and I work a job that I like, and I love being alive. I love being alive again. I'm excited for the future. I'm not afraid of it. I'm excited. And not just my future, but all of ours. And so as I wrap this presentation up, there's a few things that I want all of you to know. And if you take away nothing else from tonight, please do take away this. And the first is that there is always hope. And no matter what you're going through, there is a way back to a full, happy life. And that we always have a choice. We always, always, always have a choice. And that if ever you find yourself in a dark and despairing place, please, please know that there is another side to that pain. And on that other side is a rich, wonderful, beautiful, fulfilling life that you deserve. So if you're struggling, or if you see someone struggling, reach out, because we're all in this together and we all deserve that rich, wonderful, beautiful, fulfilling life. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lucas, for sharing your story. That was really wonderful, touching, and I think it's going to help so many people with you sharing your story, knowing that, they're not alone and help is available. In the chat, if anyone has any questions, feel free to use the chat feature and or raise your hand and I'll unmute you. Someone just wanted to thank you for sharing your story. It was very powerful. I have a couple of questions that I thought of while reading the book, as well as during your talk as well. Throughout your memoir, one of the things that I noticed that as you were writing is you feature a lot of the intrusive thoughts that were coming up, I think, during your life. And I think I can relate to that myself, the negative thinking, intrusive thoughts. What are maybe some coping suggestions that maybe you developed over time, or what can you suggest when those thoughts come into your head? Like what skills have you developed from, your experiences?
Yeah. So, I mean, one thing that's really helped me a lot is, and it's a tough thing to understand, certainly when you're younger and you don't know anything about it, is those thoughts aren't mine, right? They're not any of ours. And that sounds really weird because they're in our head and they are, our thoughts, but they're the thoughts of depression. They're the thoughts of anxiety. And so when those happen and I can recognize them as not mine, as something that is coming from an illness that I don't want any part of, it's a lot easier for me to understand that I'm not crazy. And then I can just deal with it a lot more effectively. And then the other thing, pretty standard, pretty much everyone suggests this, but exercise, right? And you don't have to do 4 hours of heavy weightlifting and in front of a mirror at the gym. I don't do that. I do like a 20-minute jog in the morning. And that seems to go a really, really long way.
Do you think that, maybe starting in high school, I feel like the pressure on young students and going into college is so much stronger. I'm currently assisting a scholarship committee, and I'm reading all the activities that these students are doing, and I barely did anything in high school. I'm regretting, I have regrets now. And, I think having all your plate full can really put so much pressure on you that, these intrusive thoughts are just these, depression and suicidal ideations might be stronger. Do you think maybe high school is a time to develop coping skills in the classroom, like, sort of a health class in a way to prepare for, when students are living on their own?
Yes. So I think that would be very, very good. And I think also, I don't even know how it would work, but I think there just needs to maybe even like a philosophy class or something, just something that gets people thinking, because I think back to what I was in high school and what a lot of people are, and we don't really know why we're doing anything. We just know that I'm supposed to do this. And when you overload yourself like that and you have no idea why you're doing any of it, eventually you get to a point where you just don't have the energy to do something without the purpose behind it. And then you see this collapse. And that's part of what happened to me. I think that's part of what's happening to a lot of people. And I think that's why you see this spike in depression in adolescents in high school and in young adults in college, because they burn out, and the rest of us, especially the older generations, are left kind of scratching their head because from a technological standpoint, life is much easier than it's ever been. But I think somewhere in that mix, and I talk about it a little bit in my book, we lost what's more important, which is understanding, at least for ourselves, why we're here to begin with. What the heck is the point to life and all of that. And so I think maybe there needs to be a bit more of a discussion in that, at least enough to get kids to go home and talk about it with their families. So I think that would be super helpful.
Oh, we had a question come in from the chat. Someone would like to ask you, what is the biggest advice that you would give a teenager struggling with depression?
So the biggest advice that I would give, be a little bit twofold here. It's one is you're not crazy, right? Because I thought I was crazy. I think a lot of people think that they're crazy or that they're bad or ungrateful, because it's very hard to conceptualize depression and anxiety as something separate from ourselves, right? It's very hard to think of those things, and so we think that we're nuts. So letting them know that they're not crazy and that they're not alone in this, that there are other people that have gone through what they're going through and they've made it to the other side and they live a great life on the other side of it. Because then that person will, one, they're going to know that they're not alone and they're going to have some hope, because there are people that they can look to who experienced this and made it out okay. And you know, what's possible for one is possible for me, right? That's the way the saying goes.
Thank you.
Mhm.
When did you decide to write your memoir? And on the slides, we noticed the organization Minding Your Mind coming up. Can you maybe explain that organization to the audience?
Yeah. So I decided to write my memoir a little bit after I graduated college. It was just kind of a fun project at first, really because I had been reading up on depression and anxiety because I felt like it was something I needed to understand to really heal and recover. And a lot of the books that I read, and I read, about 2 dozen, either made it worse for me, either made me more depressed, or they just bored me to tears, and they were absolutely painful to get through. And I was like, "There's gotta be a better way to do this." Um, and I like writing, and I just thought, "Well, I'll just try it, and we'll see what happens." And it was a pretty fun thing, and it was therapeutic for myself, and so, I enjoyed it from that aspect, but I'm super happy that other people have gotten something out of it. It's done more than I ever thought it would, so I'm very happy about that. And Mind Your Mind, wonderful organization that I found. They got a lot of young adult speakers. They have a lot of health professionals. They offer quite a few different types of classes for, um, like I said, high schools, middle schools. We even have clubs that we form with elementary schools just to begin the conversation on mental health, and how to talk about it. Um, and a lot of what we do is we share stories. I share my story. There's lots of other people like me who share theirs, and everyone gets a little something from it. And we do presentations all across New Jersey, New York, Pennsylvania, really now with this virtual thing, kind of anywhere,
Yeah,
right?
that's the amazing. It's a cheaper flight to do a talk. You can
Exactly.
just go on Zoom.
Exactly. I know. That's one benefit. Um, it really is. And so if you go to mindingyourmind.org, you will be able to find all of the programs there. And you can schedule people to come speak to your high school or, just wherever it is that you want. Really dynamic program. Always encourage it. And definitely feel free to share that,
Yeah.
because we do a lot of presentations, and I'd like to think it does a lot of good.
Well, yeah, I think, and as you mentioned before in your talk, I think hearing other people's stories, sometimes you feel so alone, and then you hear someone who mentions maybe a behavior, and that's how they recognize they were feeling depressed. Like those stories help us recognize the similar pain that we share with others, and that there is, we can get help.
Yeah. Hmm. Absolutely.
I know I think especially with the pandemic and isolation, people that maybe didn't think they had underlying symptoms for a mental illness, didn't address it, like they should, or what are some, and you mentioned it with how it connected to you, but and I don't know if you can answer this, but what are maybe some symptoms or clues to look for that maybe, you may not feel like you have depression, but what's something that you might want to recognize that maybe it's time that I need to look into this a little bit further?
Yeah. Well, if you're like me, I would say intrusive thoughts and suicidal ideation are no-brainer signs and symptoms.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. Um, Makes me, I feel stupid every time I say it now because it's like, duh, what did I think it was? But I didn't know.
Yeah.
So those are definitely signs and symptoms. Other things that are a little bit more subtle, losing interest, and usually quite rapidly, in something that you loved, right? Because you can lose interest, you can grow out of something. But if you very rapidly just drop off of something that you love, it's usually a sign that something's not quite going right. You stop taking care of yourself. You don't shower, you don't brush your teeth, you don't comb your hair. That's no good. If your eating habits change wildly, you start gorging yourself or starving yourself. Or your sleeping changes wildly. You start sleeping a ton where, before you didn't sleep much at all, or you start sleeping not at all where before you used to sleep 12 hours, right? So we're usually looking for a change in behavior. So if someone typically sleeps 12 hours and they keep sleeping 12 hours, that's fine, right? But if they typically sleep 12 and they start sleeping 4, there's something there's something going on there. And it's got to be an extended period of time. They sleep 4 hours 2 nights in a row. Maybe they're worried about something. Maybe they went through a breakup and that's just totally normal emotions. And that's fine. So it's a little bit tough to distinguish, but duration and number of symptoms usually does it.
Yeah. For me, my clue is dishes in the sink. Like if I could be like my habits are like normal, but then I notice like, oh, I still haven't done them. And even though I may not feel like I'm like, oh, it's coming soon. Something's coming around the corner. It's time to take this seriously. So I think once you know those little triggers, it helps you sort of like, okay, I have to be on top of this.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, thank you so much for coming and sharing your story. I think, tonight and your book it's just so helpful for everyone in not just New Jersey. I really hope that you're taking this more on the road to expand to others outside of New Jersey. It's just so helpful and it's so important. And now that talking about our depression and our mental illnesses, it's not so much, the stigma is almost being erased and people are more open to it, to to be aware and to take care of their mental health in addition to their physical health. So Lucas, thank you again for joining the Ridgewood Library. I can't thank you enough. It was such a meaningful night especially for me and our audience, and also for the people that joined us on Facebook Live. We had followers there. You can connect with Lucas on his website, www.lucaswolfe.com. And you're also on Facebook and Twitter. I think I saw on your website.
Definitely on Facebook. I don't know if I'm still on Twitter.
Who's on Twitter anymore?
Yeah, I know. And again, you can get the book on Amazon, My Perfect Life, Lucas Wolfe. You search that, it'll pop right up.
Thank you. Well, thank you again, Lucas. It was really wonderful meeting you, and I'm sure we're going to get in touch with you to have you back again, especially in the school year. I think it's really helpful for all ages, this talk. So everyone's thanking you in the chat.
Yeah, thank you, everybody. Thank you for showing up, and have a good night and a good Memorial Day weekend.
Yes, same to you. Okay, bye.
All right, bye.